First of all, I want to welcome you all here tonight. This is a great crowd. Allen is having its first football game of the season tonight, so most of Allen is over there in the football stadium. I played football for Allen, that was at a time when if you didn't play football, your manhood was suspect, so I played football for Allen, but I can tell you right now, I wasn't worth a crap. My aunt gave me some real good advice. She said, forget about this football. She said, you learn to dance, and you'll never be without a date. And you know what? My aunt was so right. Go to a dance, all the jocks, football players leaning against the wall, trying to look macho, and the girls was working my hind end off dancing. That was the time they danced with each other, just to have somebody to dance with. But anyway, the first story I'm going to tell you is about Texas anthems. And it's a story that I wrote after researching. Music. Texas is one of the most musical states of any of them in the Union. Excuse me. Texas has more tellers of tales told in song than any other place in the entire United States. You can think of them: Ernest Tubbs, Waylon and Willie, Roy Orbison, Buddy Holly. The list will just go on and on and on, So, the story tonight that I'm telling you to proceed, you're getting a twofer. You're getting anthems and you're getting Diamond Bill. Anthems, you would think that, let me refer to my notes here, there they are, that we would have a soul-stirring state anthem, something like Dixie, Instead, what we've got is Texas, our Texas. Anybody know the words Texas, our Texas? Yeah, few of us do. Texas, our Texas was the winner of a state anthem contest in 1929. It was written by a fellow named William Marsh and his neighbor Gladys Wright. William Marsh was from Liverpool, England, but he wound up being a music teacher over in Fort Worth. But anyway, he's the one that wrote Texas, Our Texas. That should wound up being our state song. Won $1,000. A lot of people think that like Deep in the Heart of Texas might be our state song. Well, Deep in the Heart of Texas was a two-chord song that even the writer didn't like. It was the theme music and a title of a movie in 1940 that starred Johnny Mac Brown, and the song was sung by Tex Ritter, Deep in the Heart of Texas. But it got to be a real problem. The first recording of it was made by Perry Como. And people in factories wouldn't play it because their workers, when it came, Deep in the Heart of Texas, they had to clap, So they quit playing it. The next song was The Eyes of Texas Are Upon You. The Eyes of Texas Are Upon You was a song that was written 1905 to the tune of I've Been Working on the Railroad. But it wasn't a very good song. But the phrase, the eyes of Texas are upon you, the first time, the story goes, the first time that phrase was ever uttered was in the Battle of the Wilderness in Tennessee. In Virginia. Grant's troops were about to push Lee's Confederate troops back into the Rappahannock River. On an overnight march, a brigade of Texans arrived. Robert E. Lee rode out to meet them. And he shouted, "Who are you, my boys?" And they all shouted back, "We're Texicans." And he said, "I knew you boys would come to the fight." And then he rode up in front. He was going to lead this brigade, 800 Texicans. He was going to lead them into battle. General John Gregg, the leader of the Texas Brigade, rode up and said, "General Lee, these boys ain't moving till you go to the back." He said, "I want to lead them in a battle." He said, "These boys knows the ones in the front are going to be the first to fall, so they ain't moving till you move to the rear. So he moved to the rear. And with a rebel yell, these 800 Texans surged forward. They fought all day long. They finally forced Grant's line back. But when the sun fell that night, well, I have to tell you that before they went into battle, this General Robert Gregg rode up and told these Texas boys, these 800 boys, he said, "Remember, Texicans, the eyes of Texas are upon you." And with a rebel yell, they went into battle and they fought all day long. When the sun fell that night, of the 800 Texans that had arrived that morning, it was only 265 of them still standing. But they did push Grant's Union forces back and saved the day for Robert E. Lee. So that supposedly is where the term "the eyes of Texas are upon you" was first used. Some people think the Yellow Rose of Texas ought to be the state song. Well, the Yellow Rose of Texas was written in 1854 by a minstrel show promoter named Daniel Emmett. A lot of people are opposed to using the Yellow Rose of Texas because it was a minstrel show, and minstrel show song, and they want to be, politically correct and all that stuff. So the Yellow Rose of Texas out. The next song, and the one that I think deserves recognition for "Will You Come to the," as the state anthem, is a song called "Will You Come to the Bower." Now, "Will You Come to the Bower" was originally written by Thomas More, an Irish partisan in the Irish Rebellion of 1803. And the poem was all about throwing off the chains of oppression, standing up to your enemies, you see. But by 1836, "Will You Come to the Bower" had devolved into kind of a bawdy little love song. "Will you come to the bower I have shaded for you? A bed of roses all spangled with dew. There on that bed of roses you'll lie, with a smile on your face and a twinkle in your eye." So that was "Will You Come to the Bower" in 1836. 1836, Sam Houston and the Texas Army which only numbered 800 strong at the time. A lot of them were barefooted, and they had been running away from battles with Santa Anna. You all heard about the runaway scrape and everything. But on that day at San Jacinto, Santa Anna, who fancied himself as the Napoleon of the West, and his army, which was the largest standing army in the Western Hemisphere at the time, was gathered along the river, and they were taking a siesta. Over a little rise on the other side was Sam Houston and the Texican army, 800 strong, some of them barefooted, you know. At that time, regimental bands was a big thing. Every army, every regiment had a regimental band. The Texican Army's regimental band at that time consisted of 2 fiddlers, a fellow that played a Jew's harp, one that played a tin whistle, and another that played a drum. That was all we had as our regimental band. Imagine it. They're all gathered just over a rise from Santa Anna, who's napping along the river, yes, say. The regimental band made up of Daniel Lewis and his son, George Washington Lewis. Both of them played the fiddle. I don't know the names of the Jew's harp player or the drummer or the tin whistler, but the 2 fiddlers were Daniel Lewis and his son, George Washington Lewis. Before the battle, Sam Houston is riding back and forth, you know, in front of his troops. Remember, the author of all your woe lies just over that rise, you know. And he starts leading them up the rise slowly. They can't see Santa Anna yet. But when they get to the top of the hill, they can see him all out there. Sam Houston gives the order, remember the Alamo, remember Goliad, to the charge. And the regimental band broke into the only song that all of them knew collectively, which is, Will Ye Come to the Bower? The battle lasted 18 minutes. The Texicans lost 9 people. Texas won its independence on that day at San Jacinto. And it was all done to the strains of Will You Come to the Bower? Had Texas not won its independence that day, there would be no New Mexico, Arizona, California, Colorado, or Utah, you see. All of those were won under the strains of Will You Come to the Bower? It's only my opinion, but I think we ought to seriously consider making Will You Come to the Bower the Texas anthem. I'm going to disappear for a minute, go behind the curtain. I'm going to tell you the story of Diamond Bill. In case I screw up, which I probably will, I got some great musicians back there to cover my butt. You see. We also have some surprises for you. So, appreciate you coming tonight. I hope you enjoy yourself, and we'll try to make it worth the price of admission that you paid to get in here.
They tell me Jeb Ryder's cabin still stands about a quarter mile up the slope from the spring on Elm Creek. Nobody struck oil in this part of East Texas yet, so things out in the past still live on there. People still talk about the Civil War and recall the names of Jeb Ryder and certain other Confederates reduced to dirt long ago. Diamond Bill disappeared long before the last rebel faded to dust, but Jeb Ryder's story of Diamond Bill still lives on.
Well, welcome to Elm Springs. I don't know why my wife wanted the cabin built so far up the slope from the springs. I think it's because she's scared of floods and, bottomland mosquitoes. Yeah. Anyway, it was a long way to carry water. I don't know why my wife wouldn't carry water like other women, but she wouldn't do it, But anyway, my wife was always after me to, clear more land, plant more sweet potatoes and corn, and keep firewood all chopped up, I was kind of used to just squirreling around and doing what come naturally and hunting with my dogs and all that stuff, you see. The best dog I ever had was old Bill. But anyway, one day I was going down the spring and I heard something behind me, kind of a low rattle. And I turned and I looked, and there was the biggest old rattlesnake I'd ever saw. Not more than 6 steps behind me, Well, I looked around for, a stick or a club to hit him with, but there wasn't none, So I kind of eased on down the trail a little bit looking for a stick, and I looked back, that snake's coming on too. Well, I stopped and looked at that snake, and contrary to human nature, I just kind of turned around and walked away. I looked back, that snake's following me. Keeping a respectable distance, Kind of like a dog that wants to be friends, but is scared too. Anyway, I went on down to the springs and sat down on a log, and that snake came on down there. I got to talking to that snake, and he kind of acted like he felt sorry for me. I was telling him how I felt sorry for myself. I'd been used to squirreling around, doing whatever come naturally, and now I was having to chop stove wood and plant corn and all that stuff. And I just feeling sorry for myself. But he looked at me like he's kind of feeling sorry for me too. But anyway, a bunch of jaybirds got to diving at that snake. And, so I decided to go back on up to the cabin, But that snake followed me, and about halfway up the trail, he dropped out too. Well, next day when I was going down the spring, that snake did just like he'd done the day before. He followed me down there, So he followed me on down to the spring. I sat down on a log and I began talking to him, I said, you know what? You remind me of old Bill. I said, from now on, you're Bill to me. And that snake just looked at me and kind of nodded like he understood, And We had a lot of meaningful conversations down there, you know. I'd cut him a chaw my tobacco, you know. But with them teeth he had trouble chewing it, you know. But I'd get it started for him before I'd give it to him, you know. But anyway, our visit at the spring became regular, you know. I'd tell him, you know, how Texas had joined the Union in '45. Old Bill didn't know the difference. As far as he knew, he's still a Mexican. You see, he didn't even know he was a Texan, but I told him he was. And Texas had joined the Union in '45. You see, and anyway, so now old Bill knew that he was a Texican, you see. So we had meaningful conversations, and I'd tell him what I heard over at the general store at the county seat, how them Republicans up north, them new Republicans, how they's trying to mind our business down here in Texas. It got to where just the mere mention of Republicans would get that old snake all riled up. He'd just hiss and all that stuff. Anyway, Louisiana, the folks over in Louisiana, they quit the Union in January of 1861. A month later, Texas quit the Union too, you see. Well, I sold off some corn and a good mule and got me a good gentle horse, and I joined the Confederate Army, you see. And I traded in that hat, and I got this one right here, you see. Well, after I joined, you know, I was gonna go tell old Bill, you know, goodbye down at the Springs. This was after my wife got my stuff all packed up. Anyway, I was riding that horse down the trail towards the Springs. Something dropped down around my shoulders. It was old Bill. I said, "So you want to go to war too?" He nodded his head. Yeah, he wanted to go to war too. I said, "Well, you know, I hadn't told a soul about old Bill, not even my wife, you know. I just didn't think anybody didn't understand it. But old Bill was set on going, so I decided I'd take him. But I told him, I said, now, you got to mind what I say, and you got to stay where I put you." And he nodded his head that he would, you know. So we rode off on down to Springs, you know. I was ready to tell old Bill goodbye, but he had joined me. But when I went down there to tell him, you know, goodbye, that I'd be leaving.
From this valley, they say, you are going. We will miss your bright eyes and sweet smile. For they say you are taking the sunshine that brightens our path for a while. Come and sit by my side if you love me.
Well, for months, we're just practicing squad riding, squad lefting, or was it squad lefting and squad riding? We was practicing all of that. You know, Bill liked watching the practice, and he especially liked the regimental band. You know, I'd put him under the commissary wagon, and you know, he paid real high attention to. You know, it was real funny watching him. You know, hash his tail. You know, trying to hit them high notes when they played Dixie.
Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, Dixieland. In Dixieland where I was born, early on one frosty morn. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Oh, I wish I was in Dixie. Hooray, hooray. In Dixieland I'll take my stand to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie.
Well, finally our training was over, you know. We crossed the Mississippi and joined up with General Albert Sidney Johnson's forces, you know. Then when we went into Shiloh, the first battle, boy howdy was we winning. We fought all day long, sometimes out in the clearing, sometimes in the forest, you know, boy howdy. We fought back and forth all day long. Of course, we didn't know it till the next day that General Albert Sidney Johnson had been killed in that battle. Might have turned out a whole lot different if we hadn't lost him and if we'd had more people like old Bill. My regiment was camped out at Elk Creek, you know. And that's just north of Shiloh Church, you know. That evening when we was trying to get back to camp, our captain told us that the Yankees had worked in between us and Owl Creek, you know. Told us we was gonna have to clear that out before we could get back to camp, you know. Well, we began bellying along, hiding behind trees, but we wouldn't draw on no fire, you know. Then I came upon the dead Yankee, you know. Wasn't no bullet, no blood or nothing, you know, and trees hadn't been creased. And then got to looking, there was another dead Yankee, another dead Yankee. And then somebody said, "Hey, look here." He'd pulled up his breeches leg. There was 2 little holes in it. Then we began pulling up the breeches legs of the other ones. And they all had 2 little holes in their legs. Then it hit me. Old Bill had been there, you know. So, when we got back to camp, there he was, under the commissary wagon, all tuckered out, one of them teeth bent, you know. Sure was proud of him, though, you know. Me and the boys got to calling him Diamond Bill. He became kind of like a mascot, you know. Well, ain't no use telling y'all all about the battles we fought, me and Bill. I fixed up a bag for Bill to ride in. Cut a hole in it so he could put his head out, you know what I mean? We was at Shiloh, we was at Chickamauga, Bill did some scouting for General Braxton Bragg at Chickamauga. And it was Bill scouting helped Captain Longstreet take back Chattanooga. You know, after we took back Chattanooga, Bill went missing for a few days. But the boys was all sitting around, you know. I think Bill had found him a lady friend. But anyway, me and the boys all sitting around, all we could think about was our wives and our sweethearts.
The years creep slowly by, Lorena. Snow is on the grass again. The sun is sinking low, Lorena. Frost is where the flowers have been. The music softly plays, Lorena. Happy sounds have left the day. The music sad and low, Lorena, where once it rang so loud and gay. We'll sing our songs again, Lorena, and you'll be in my arms at last. Yes, you'll be in my arms at last.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. 'Tis you must go and I must bide. But come me back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. And I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
Well, at Appomattox, I was still alive, and so was old Bill. Jim Bowie wasn't known. Jim Bowie was my horse. I named him Jim Bowie. Jim Bowie had been shot off of Monument. You know. A lot of us boys didn't want to surrender. You know, but for every 10 men that signed up for the Gray, the Confederacy, there was only 4 still standing. I don't know how many boys in blue was lost, but I know there was a bunch of them. A lot of them.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah,
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 hurrah.
we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah,
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 hurrah.
the men will cheer and the boys will shout, the ladies they will all turn out, and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. The old church bell will peal with joy, hurrah,
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 hurrah.
to welcome home our darling boy, hurrah,
Hurrah,
hurrah.
hurrah.
The village lads and lassies say with roses they will strew the way, and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home.
After surrender, me and Bill headed for home on a borrowed mule. And I was riding that mule somewhere in East Tennessee, asleep in the saddle. And, Bill must have fell out of that sack. I pulled up and started looking for him. I looked for 3 days. I never found him. I figured old Bill was lost. And he'd never find his way back to Texas again. He'd be all alone.
I am a poor, wayfaring stranger, traveling through this land of woe. But there's no sickness and no toil or danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my mother. She said she'd meet me when I come. Well, I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going home. Well, I know dark clouds will gather around me. I know my way will be rough and steep, but beauty is filled lie just before me, where God's redeemed their vigils keep. I'm going there to see my loved ones gone on before me, one by one. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going home. I'm going there to meet my Savior. I'm going there no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going home. I'm only going
You know, it's awful hard to lose a comrade, you know, especially one that you've been through so many battles with, you know. It took me 2 weeks to get home to Elm Springs, and I thought old Bill every day. I thought about him a lot when I got back, especially when I'd go down to the spring. And one day in '67, when I was going in a hurry, you know, down to the spring, I heard something behind me. And I wheeled around. And there was a big old rattlesnake. I hollered at him, "Bill! Bill, is that you?" He nodded his head with, "Oh, Bill, I'm so glad you found your way home. I thought I'd lost you back there in Tennessee. I'm so glad you made it home." You know, then he made a motion, kind of like he wants me to follow him. So I follow him off the trail, and then we come upon another big old rattlesnake. Well, I looked at Bill. Bill looked at me, and then he looked at that rattlesnake. And I looked at Bill, and he looked at that rattlesnake. "Mrs. Bill?" I asked. He nodded his head yes and kind of sidled up next to her, you see. Well, I found out what had happened back there in East Tennessee. Bill hadn't fell out of that sack. He'd climbed out of that sack and went back to look for his lady friend, you know. Now he'd brought her home. His Tennessee bride had come home to Texas.
There's a yellow rose in Texas that I am going to see. Nobody else could miss her, not half as much as me. She cried so when I left her, it like to broke my heart. And if I ever find her, we never more will part. She's the sweetest little rosebud that Texas ever knew. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, they sparkle like the dew. You may talk about your Clementine and sing of Rosalie, but the yellow rose of Texas is the only girl for me.
Well, me and old Bill was together a lot down at the spring, you know. I told him I thought he ought to get a medal for his service to the Confederacy. And I'd write to see if I could get him one, if I knowed how to write and who to write to, you know. But I sure thought he ought to have a medal for his service to his country. But since me and old Bill was both married now, and I guess he had chores to do just like I did, started to slack off, you know, our visits and down to Elm Springs. Come to think of it, you know, I hadn't seen old Bill in a long time, you know. But I want you folks to remember, if you come across a big old rattlesnake, you see, don't you be picking up no stick and trying to hit it with, you know. Because it might be old Bill. You know, old Bill is a veteran, you know. We all together now. He's an American veteran, so don't you be picking up no stick and trying to hit him. Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton.
Old times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. I wish I was in Dixie, away, away. In Dixieland I'll take my stand to live and die in Dixie. 'Cause Dixieland's where I was born. Early, Lord, on one frosty morn. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland.
So hush, little baby, don't you cry. You know your daddy was bound to die. Oh, my trials, Lord, soon be over.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth